Let's talk about the 11 books I read in February. First off, I'm shocked that I managed to read 11 books in February, and you saw some of them were pretty thick, so I haven't calculated how many pages yet I've read in February, but when I do, I'll put it on the screen because I'm sure it's a lot of pages. Just looking at the books that I read, I feel like it is. Who knows, I could be wrong, but it feels like a lot of pages. We're just gonna jump right into the first book I read in February, which is Reckless by Lauren Roberts. This is the little novella that comes the way that I thought that this was the little novella that comes before the second book, it's not. It's a full-on book. I rated this 3 stars. It's a fantasy and it's the last book in the series that is currently out. There's one more book and then I believe the series is over. So obviously I'm not going to tell you what this book is about because it's a little bit deeper into the series. But in this series you're following Kai and... why can't I remember her name? I'm actually so bad with names. That will happen a million times in this video. I can't remember her name off the top of my head. But you're following mostly the 2 of them in the first book. There's also other characters because they're kind of going through this little trial situation, and I love trials in fantasy books. So I'm very glad I picked this one up. It is a romantasy, but I didn't think that it was like too romantasy, if you know what I mean. Like some romantasies feel like they are romantasies just for the sake of being a romantasy. This one actually made sense as a romantasy. I don't know if that makes sense, but recently when I've been reading romantasies, I'm like, this doesn't make sense as a romantasy, you know? It just feels like a clout chasing kind of book. But the series is not like that in my opinion. It's very good. This one I only rated a 3 star. I think I just found it a little bit, I guess, lackluster for lack of better words, because I'm not sure how else to describe it. It just didn't wow me basically, especially when I compare it to the first book, because the first book wowed me a lot. The novella in between didn't wow me as much, but that's okay. I also just realized that I had 2 5 stars in the month of February. I'm not sure if that ever has happened to me before, but my first 5 star was Magnolia Park's The Long Way Home. This was part of my 5 romance books in 5 days, and if you want my live reactions to this book, you should watch that video because I was like giggling and just kicking my feet. I loved it so much. I feel like the whole first like 10 minutes of that video is me raving about how much I liked this book, and I still to this day think about this book. Like this was the second book I read in February and I'm still thinking about this book. That's how much I enjoyed it. I'm so excited to get into the rest of the books in the series. I keep debating on if I want to read them right away or if I want to wait and like kind of draw out the series a little bit more, since the last book is not out yet and I'm not sure when it's coming out, because part of me wants to just devour them right now, and then the rational part of me knows that I should probably wait considering the last book isn't even out yet. But if you don't know anything about the Magnolia Parks universe, this is book number 3 in the little universe. It basically switches between Daisy's point of view and Magnolia's point of view. So this book is Magnolia's point of view, and this whole universe just follows a group of rich socialites in London. And I always say, if you like Gossip Girl, I 100% recommend you at least try this book, but go into it knowing that these books are toxic romance. Because if I didn't go into the series knowing that these books were toxic romance, I don't think I would have liked it as much, because I feel like if you are going into these books expecting a little cute rom-com-y lighthearted kind of romance, I feel like you're gonna be let down, and that's not a fun feeling. So just know that these are toxic romance. Like I said, this one follows Magnolia and BJ, and I even said in that reading vlog, I thought that we were done with their backstory. Like I thought that this would be like a present day situation. No, there is so much to dissect about them, and then also just like what happens in the present day. This book was a masterpiece if you asked me. This one was my favorite by far of the entire series so far. The first one and this one I think are my favorites, which I just feel like that means I'm just a Magnolia girl, you know? Highly recommend this series if you haven't read it already. At least just give it a try, you know? You never know. But like I said, toxic romance. Do not go into it expecting a cute little rom-com-y moment because you're gonna be disappointed. Also, this book didn't make me cry, but it did come close. And then I read In 5 Years. I was slightly disappointed by this book. I rated it a 3 star, but also I felt like whatever book I read after Magnolia Parks was going to be a slight disappointment, because I feel like every time I read a 5 star, whatever book I read after that, I'm just gonna be slightly disappointed, especially if it's like the same genre. Like these were both romance books, even though I would not consider this book a romance book. I would consider this 100% woman's fiction. I don't know why it was shelved under romance, but that's just my opinion. Anyway, the premise of this book is so interesting, which is why I had higher hopes for it. But basically we're following our main character, and one day she just randomly wakes up and she is 5 years into the future, and she gets like 30 minutes of 5 years into the future. Like she does not have a lot of time to process why it's happening in 5 years in the future. Oh, my cat is using the litter box. Okay, my cat is down in the litter box, so I can go back to talking about this book. It's so loud when she uses the litter box, so I had to pause. But like I was saying, in this book she is transported 5 years into the future future, and her life is very, very different, and she is shocked by how different it is. Basically, she is engaged in 5 years in the past, but then when she transports 5 years in the future, she is with someone else that she like does not know who he is at all. So it's a very interesting premise, and I liked the idea of it. But like I said, 100% a woman's fiction book. I would not go into this book expecting a romance, and that is what I did. I thought it was going to be a cute little romance, but I was disappointed. Also, it is very, very, very short. Like, I mean, Magnolia Parks is a pretty thick book, but look at the difference between these books. And I honestly struggle sometimes when the book is a short book like this, because I am such a characters person. I need to feel attached to the characters. I need to be rooting for them, and it was hard for me to connect to any of the characters in this book, which is part of the reason why I just did not love it. Probably wouldn't recommend it, but so many people have enjoyed this book, so I don't think it was a bad book. It just was not for me. And then I read The Do-Over by Lynn Painter. I rated this a 4-star. This was my first Lynn Painter book and my first groundhog trope book, because basically in this book she is repeating Valentine's Day over and over and over and over and over again, and you're kind of like, well, what are you gonna do? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we've all seen this done in movies where they repeat the same day over and over. I think is it Freaky? No, that's not Freaky Friday. That's when they switch places. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I feel like I've seen movies where they do this. Was that in Sweet Life of Zack and Cody? Focus. We're talking about the book right now. I also read this the week before Valentine's Day, which was such good timing. Highly recommend waiting to read this book until then. It was just kind of more fun because you know that she's repeating Valentine's Day. Even though it's not like super Valentine's Day, like you can read this book really whenever. I just thought it was more fun because I was reading it during the Valentine's Day season. If you're looking for a sweeter YA romance, highly recommend this one. Also, because it is YA, it is closed door, so that's good. And then I read / listened to The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I rated this a 3-star, which I feel like might surprise some people because this book is so hyped up, so talked about, and I feel like that's the problem with me, is that I will read hyped up books years after the fact that they're hyped up. So I'm going into the hype super late to the game, which also just makes it harder to get into the book and like really enjoy it. You know what I mean? Because I feel like it's so hyped that my expectations are so high, and that's part of what happened with this book. But basically you were following the life of Evelyn Hugo, and she does have a very interesting life. I'm not saying that she doesn't by any means. I'm pretty sure she's a movie star, but that's obviously like not the main focus of the story. The focus is very much her romance, and obviously she's been married a lot. I thought that there would be something a little bit crazier as to why she has been married so many times, but the reason 100% made sense. It was 100% very realistic, but I just had a problem with the number of times that she got married. It just sat wrong with me because of the way that it was kind of described, like her reasoning why. I don't know how to describe it without giving it away, because I can't say like a specific line that stuck out to me that just like sat really wrong with me. I can't say it or it would spoil the book, but that was my main issue with it. But you are 100% just mostly following her life and her romances and her career a little bit, but it is mostly about like her romantic interests. And then I read Love Interest by Clare Gilmore. This is the first book I read by this author, and it's also her debut novel, and she did such a good job with this book. I rated it a 4-star, and I think it was also my first ever workplace romance. I'm pretty sure it was. But basically you have your main character Casey, and in the very beginning she is up for a promotion, but our MMC gets the promotion over she does. But that also means they start working together, and then things just kind of progress from there. It was a very cute little read. You can see I tabbed it, and I don't really tab my books ever. She also works in finance, which I just thought was so relatable, and I loved it so much. I wonder if there's any lines that I can read to you. I feel like this is the only one that I could read to you because the rest of them would spoil something, but it says, "He's so handsome it sort of hurts my feelings." I thought that that was hilarious, the way that she described him, because also I feel like that is something I would say. Like, that is hilarious to me. Anyways, really liked this one. Highly recommend if you're looking for a cute little workplace romance. Also, I just remembered something I really appreciated about this book was the third act conflict felt so natural and so real. And you guys know, if you read a lot of romance books, sometimes the third act conflict will ruin the whole book. So it's like, what? Why did you just throw that in there? Like, that just made no sense. This one made perfect sense, and I really appreciated that. And then I have Onyx Storm, which I actually feel like a lot of people have very different opinions on this book. Like, some people love it, some people hate it, some people are just like meh. I'm one of those people that's just like meh. I hate to say it, but I am. The whole beginning, like 100 or even 150 pages, I was like, what is going on in this book? I don't remember any of these people. I'm just very confused about what is going on, and I honestly thought that that was my issue. Like, I thought I was the problem until I saw online that so many people were confused by the first 100 pages of the book. And I feel like if most of your readers are confused just by the first 100 pages, something's going on, you know, like there's a little bit of a problem here. So that 100% lowered my rating a little bit. And then by the end of the book, I literally put this book down and I had like this much left of the book, put it down for weeks and didn't go back to it until later because I just did not care anymore by the end. It felt not like a filler book because I hate that. Like I just feel like it did not need to be this long. I feel like this could have been combined with another book, if that makes sense. Also, just realized I never said anything about this book. I just assumed that you would know. But basically, this is the third book in the Empyrean series. It's the Fourth Wing series. I actually really liked Iron Flame, which is the second book. I think that one's my favorite out of the three. But basically, in Fourth Wing, you are following our main character who is going into the like dragon school. I forgot what they call it, but she's basically training to ride a dragon, and the training is very hard and a lot of riders die, so you follow her trying to do that. And they are all a little bit romanticies. Not a little bit. They definitely are, and they're not closed door either. But I did enjoy the series so far. I just think this one was a bit of a disappointment for me, and it was my least favorite of the series. That doesn't mean I'm not going to pick up the next book though, because I am definitely going to. But this one was a bit of a disappointment for me. And then I read Funny Story by Emily Henry. This I think is one of my favorite Emily Henry books. I think Happy Place is still my all-time favorite, but this one might be a close second for me. And I think I'm gonna give this one a 4.5 star because I was obsessed with the romance in this book, but I didn't really think about this book after I put it down, and it didn't give me that 5-star feeling. And normally those two factors are what I determine my 5 stars to be, like if I get that 5-star feeling or if I keep thinking about the book after I put it down, and this one just didn't do that for me. So it feels funny to rate a book a 4.5 star because it's like, okay, you might as well just round up, but it didn't give me that feeling, so I'm not gonna round up. But it is funny though because I liked this book better than Beach Read, and I rated Beach Read a 5 star. So I'm kind of confused on what's going on there, so I might have to change my Beach Read rating because like I said, I liked this one better than Beach Read. But basically you have our two main characters, Miles and Daphne, and they have both just come out of relationships, and they are actually roommates. And they were roommates. So their exes are actually broke up with each of them to get with each other, if that makes sense. So that's how they end up living together. So it's a very messy situation, and you're just gonna have to read it to see how they figure it out. February was full of romances for me. And then I read All About Love by Bell Hooks. This is a non-fiction book, basically all about love, but it is so much more than that. She manages to connect love to so many different topics. I did only rate this one a 3 star, but mostly because I feel like a lot of the book I just couldn't relate to, and I didn't pick up a lot of information, and it also just read slightly textbooky, which is the main thing that puts me off to nonfiction books. So when it started reading a little bit like that, it kind of put me off a lot to the book. But I did really like how the author managed to connect love to so many different facets of life, specifically when she talked about love and the different genders, and also relating that back to childhood. I thought that was so interesting. So I did still really like the book. I just wish it wasn't giving me that textbook vibe, if you know what I mean. A good nonfiction book to me will not make me feel like I'm reading a textbook. And then I read Where Sleeping Girls Lie. I believe this is a YA thriller, and you are following our main character who goes to a boarding school, and this is her first time going to a in-person school in general. She used to be homeschooled, but her parents have tragically died, and because of that she goes to a boarding school, which is so interesting. Just like the way that this boarding school is set up, it reminded me of Harry Potter because they have houses and they get like sorted into the houses based on a quiz. That whole part was so interesting to me. I love Harry Potter, so anything that reminds me of Harry Potter, I actually enjoy that. But it was only the structure of the boarding school that reminded me of Harry Potter. Everything else is obviously very different because this is a thriller, not a fantasy. But things start going down at this boarding school. Lots of things get uncovered as well. There was a good amount of twists that I did not guess. There were some that I did guess, unfortunately, which is part of the reason why I lowered the rating to a 3 star. The book just mostly didn't wow me, to be honest, and it wasn't like crazy enough for me to love it that much. And part of that reason could be because it was YA, but I mostly think it could have been better at grabbing my attention because the whole middle half of the book I was a bit bored. It was just way too dragged out, and I really think you should not be bored when reading a thriller. And then I read Lessons in Chemistry, which was actually my second 5 star of February, which was actually shocking because I did have high expectations for this book because I've seen this book everywhere. It has been such a popular book for a while. Again, I'm late to the game. There's nothing new here. But basically this is a historical fiction, and I believe it's set in 1970s or something like that. Our main character is a scientist, and during this time period being a woman is so hard. Like they basically can only be a housewife, and they're just treated very, 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 very poorly. And so our main character is told over and over again, like, you're not a scientist. But she's like, yes, I am. She is such a strong-willed main character, and you basically follow her in her life, in her career. Also, I recommend checking the trigger warnings for this book, but if you're like me and you were putting off this book, this is your sign to pick it up because you are gonna love it. You're gonna fall in love with the main characters. You're also probably gonna hate a few of the side characters, but that is okay. This was a masterpiece that I just keep thinking about, and that is why I bumped it from a 4.5 star to a 5 star. This book, I just keep thinking about it. It was so good. And then I read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which was yet another popular book that I read this month. I feel like I read so many popular books this month, and I did read this a 3.5 star, which was lower than I expected it to be. I feel like everyone loves this book. But basically you have our main character Addie LaRue, who is pretty much immortal, but there's a kicker to that. She is not remembered by anyone. And I think my main problem with this book was actually the fact that I kept comparing this book to The Age of Adeline or Age of Adeline, something like that. It's a movie and it is very different. The premise is very different. In that movie, she can be remembered, but she is also immortal in that movie. And I think it was basically the fact that their names were so similar with a similar premise that was really throwing me off, because once I finally got over the fact that they reminded me of each other, I could not connect with the characters at that point. We were just way too far into the book for me to really connect with them. And I feel like connecting with the characters is such an important part of this story. So that is the main reason this fell flat for me. And I was just honestly confused on how this book ended up getting so much hype when it reminded me so much of a movie that is not based off of this book. I don't know. I was just a little bit confused. And then I read Perfect Fit by Clare, which I rated a 4 star. And I liked her debut novel so much that I decided to read this one. This is her second book. So I think I've actually read both books that she has out right now. But this one is also a workplace romance. But in this book, our main character is the CEO of a fashion company that she started, which that is just so cool to me. Like, just hearing her talk about her fashion company, I liked that so much. But also I loved the couple in this book, and I feel like for me in a romance, if I don't love the couple in the book, I'm most likely not going to love the romance. So I liked her writing, I liked the couple in this book. I can't decide if I liked this one better than love interest or not, because I liked both of them so much. They might be on the same even playing ground because both of them were 4 stars for me. So I'm definitely going to read whatever books she comes out with next. But that is everything I read in February. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!